What happens when the terror they planned for you comes crashing back on them 100-fold? Chosen ones. That is exactly the nightmare your enemies are living right now, an unseen strike of horror so massive it left them weeping like the dead behind their closed doors. They thought your silence meant surrender, but silence became your weapon. And now their tears are not healing, they are suffocating. The walls around them echo with cries they swore they'd never shed. Proof that the game flipped and they lost the script. Comment 777 if you can feel this divine reversal shaking the atmosphere. Because heaven itself is bearing witness that your breakthrough is unstoppable. And to those who have supported through super thanks or simply by standing with this channel, know that your presence is a blessing beyond words. Stay with me, because in just a moment I will reveal why their weeping is more than sorrow. It is the undeniable evidence that the stage they built to trap you has collapsed under their own feet, and your rise cannot be silenced. God's chosen ones. Enemies are weeping like the dead. The massive strike of horror has fallen. Number 1. Their greatest tragedy is not simply losing you. It is losing the mask that was their final disguise. The very costume that kept their false narrative alive. For years, they paraded as saints while hiding serpents beneath their cloaks, playing the role of the righteous before men. But what happens when the curtain is torn from top to bottom? Just as it was in Matthew 27-51, exposing the holy to the unholy and the hidden to the revealed, suddenly, the applause they lived on has turned into silence. And silence is louder than any denial. Their survival depended on your quiet suffering, on you doubting yourself, on you playing the role of the villain in their theater. Yet something shifted like a massive earthquake under their stage, the same kind of disruption that Acts 16:26 describes when the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's chains were loosed. Isn't that the fate of those who thought they could bind you, their platform cracked, their false image shattered, and for the first time, people are seeing you as unshaken, genuine, chosen. And the more your light rose, the more their shadow was dragged into the open. Your victory was not just a personal triumph, it became the mirror that showed their lies. As Jesus declared in Luke 12:2, there is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. Do you see why their tears taste like poison now? They aren't weeping because you are blessed. They are weeping because your blessing stripped them of their disguise. The collapse is brutal. Once a mask falls, no one can wear it again. Think of it like stained glass shattered in a cathedral. Once the fragments scatter, no craftsman can ever restore its sacred glow. Their identity, built brick by brick on deception, crumbled in a single strike of truth. And doesn't this echo the fate of Haman in the book of Esther, who constructed gallows for Mordecai but ended up hanging on them himself? Pride turned to ruin, illusion to judgment. Modern voices testify to this principle. The Spanish painter Francisco de Goya once whispered through his art, "The sleep of reason produces monsters." Their illusion was nothing but a dream fueled by deceit. And when reason awoke, the monsters they hid became visible to all. Or think of the haunting notes of Mozart's Requiem. When the choir thunders, Lacrimosa dies. Illa, oh, that day of weeping, do their private tears not echo that lament now? As their performance collapses into ashes. And here lies the irony. Your growth itself became the evidence of their lies. In psychological terms, this is cognitive dissonance when reality shatters belief. The human mind cannot reconcile the contradiction. Their followers now see the dissonance too. The trust they once borrowed evaporated. The admiration they once stole has vanished. Isn't it chilling to imagine the echo of their cries at night? Knowing no one believes their script anymore, nature testifies against them. When a tree rots from the inside, it may stand tall for a season, but the storm exposes its hollow core, or the firefly, glowing briefly in the dark. But when dawn comes, its light looks pathetic compared to the sunrise. They lived as borrowed light. But your eyes revealed the true dawn. History also remembers villains who wore masks. Take Cardinal Richelieu, the cunning statesman of France. His power thrived on secrecy and manipulation, yet when his schemes were unmasked, the legacy left behind was suspicion and fear, not reverence. Just as Proverbs 26-27 warns, whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Their deception has become their trap, and there is a lesson even in the ordinary. Maria, a humble seamstress from a small village, once told her children, "A lie is like poorly stitched cloth, one tug, and the whole garment unravels." Is that not what happened here? A single thread of truth pulled, and their carefully woven costume collapsed in public view. Chosen one, hear this clearly. Their tears are not truly about you. They are mourning the death of the character they invented, the collapse of an illusion that can never be rebuilt. When a mask this deep breaks, it is the death of an identity. And yet, what they see as death for themselves is resurrection for you. Isaías 60:1 declares, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." Stand up now, chosen one, for the strike of horror that silenced your enemies has become the trumpet of your breakthrough. Their stage is dust, but your foundation is eternal. Walk forward unshaken, because heaven has confirmed what hell could never deny. You were never the villain. You are the proof of God's unstoppable glory. Number 2, their schemes were not merely failures. They transformed into an iron prison with no escape. When your enemies plotted against you, they believed they were constructing a masterpiece of manipulation, a labyrinth so precise it would cage you forever. Yet does not Scripture declare in Job 5:13, "He catches the wise in their craftiness, and the schemes of the wily are swept away." What they imagined as brilliance became their own trap, and every stone they laid for your downfall is now the wall, sealing them inside. The very blueprint they celebrated as genius is now a tomb where their pride rots. And isn't it striking that every strategy they designed with such precision now serves only as the bars of their confinement? Their brilliance has become their bondage, and their arrogance the lock they cannot pick. Each rumor whispered was meant to bury you, yet like seeds cast into poisoned soil, those words grew into thorn bushes that now choke their own breath. Just as Galatians 6-7 warns, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." Isn't it haunting that the harvest they mocked you with is now the very famine starving their souls? Their web of lies required more lies to survive, until the tangle became so tight, even the spider was strangled in its own silk. The whispers that once echoed like victory songs now rattle like chains in their ears. Their own voices betray them, for silence has become their loudest confession. And the more they try to untangle their threads, the tighter the knot strangles them into despair. History itself echoes this truth. Nero, the Roman emperor famed for cruelty, once thought Rome was his theater of eternal power. But his plots became his prison when betrayal and fear closed in. He died, abandoned, a victim of his own fire. Does this not mirror the fate of your enemies who set flames for you, but now suffocate in their own smoke? Their downfall is not a matter of chance. It is the script destiny always writes for those who war against the innocent. And deeper still, don't you sense their tears behind closed doors are not just regret, but proof that heaven has already passed its judgment? Their nights echo with the same cries of emperors and tyrants of old, undone not by another's sword, but by their own hand. Their strategies meant to weaken you are now the chains rattling in their own corridors of fear. Every success you achieve is another lock snapping shut around them. Psalm 7:15 proclaims, "Whoever digs a hole and scoops it out falls into the pit they have made." That is not poetic metaphor, it is brutal law. The physics of divine consequence. Just as in architecture, when a foundation is misaligned, the entire structure collapses under its own weight. So too have they become prisoners of their own crooked design. And every brick they thought would stand forever now crumbles like sand, proving that destiny cannot be built on deception. Isn't it poetic that while they designed pits for you, their own footprints became the evidence that buried them? Nature bears witness against them. The trapdoor spider, waiting patiently for prey, sometimes seals itself in its own burrow when the earth shifts. The strangler fig, climbing relentlessly, kills its host only to collapse with it. Are these not portraits of those who believed their survival depended on suffocating you? Their world is smaller now, more suffocating, not because of your rise, but because of the dungeon their own hands carved. The very ecosystem they poisoned has turned against them. Like nature itself, refusing to collaborate with their schemes, their breath is shorter, their reach is weaker, and every day feels like a wall pressing in closer. Isn't that the cruel truth that creation itself has declared them guilty? And the scriptures leave no doubt. Genesis 4:12 shows the mark of Cain, condemned to wander, not by another's chains, but by his own guilt. And Isaiah 29:15 thunders, "Woe to those who go to great depths to hide their plans from the Lord, who do their work in darkness and think, 'Who sees us? Who will know?' Yet the very darkness became the spotlight that betrayed them. Their masks, once held so tightly, crack in the glare of a light they cannot dim. Even their allies begin to notice the fractures, whispering behind their backs the same way they once whispered about you. And doesn't this prove the unshakable truth that nothing hidden stays hidden forever? Their greatest fear has arrived: exposure, irreversible and unrelenting. Their punishment is not an external cage, it is the collapse of their identity. Every plan against you has calcified into a locked door. Every deception has hardened into a bar they cannot break. The tears they shed are stagnant waters, not cleansing rivers. And what is stagnation but the smell of death itself? Their grief is the stench of rotting pride. Their sorrow, the evidence of a prison that will never open. Chosen one, rise with confidence, for their prison is permanent. And your breakthrough is the undeniable key. And isn't that the victory that without lifting a hand, your survival alone has become their sentence? Number 3, they longed to stand at your funeral, but without realizing, they have been forced to attend their own. That is the unfiltered truth, choking them like smoke in their lungs. For years, they spoke with confidence about your end, gossiping as if it were already carved in stone, almost dancing in the shadows while whispering your eulogy. They declared your wilderness would break you. Yet, how bitter must it taste now that you emerged alive, while their own reputation is the one buried in silence? As Psalm 118:17 proclaims, I shall not die, but live and declare the works of the Lord. Doesn't that verse capture the irony that the living testimony of your survival is the tombstone of their lies? They expected you to collapse under storms, but storms became your sculptors. Like the Gothic arches of a cathedral, pressure did not crush you, it redirected weight upward, making you soar higher. Every blow became a structural beam, every betrayal a cornerstone. Hebrews 12:27 says, what can be shaken will be removed, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. And what remains now is you unshaken, towering, while they tremble in the rubble of their false predictions. And isn't it haunting to ask, if they prepared so carefully for your burial, how do they feel now? Standing among the ashes of their own pride, they plotted your downfall as if it were inevitable. But their confidence became their coffin. The celebration they anticipated has turned into their own mourning. Like Pharaoh who pursued Israel into the sea, they thought the waters would close over you. Yet Exodus 2:28 records how the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen. In the same way, the very waves they stirred to drown, you have swallowed them instead. Can you see it? Their tears are not about your success, but about the funeral march of their ego. Psychology confirms it. The principle of projection bias shows that people assume others will fail where they secretly fear collapse themselves. Could that be why their voices cracked while announcing your downfall? Because deep inside, they knew they were speaking their own prophecy. Ecclesiastes 10:8 reinforces it. Whoever digs a pit may fall into it, and whoever breaks through a wall may be bitten by a snake. Their miscalculation is burying them, day by day. And in the quiet testimonies of ordinary lives, the same truth emerges. Elena, a florist in a forgotten town, once told her daughter, the flowers you prepare for someone else's grave may end up blooming on your own. That simple wisdom now echoes prophetically. The bouquets your enemies prepared for your coffin became the wreaths on their own caskets. Isaías 25:8 declares, He will swallow up death forever. The sovereign Lord will wipe away the tears from all faces. Their tears, however, are not wiped away, they are multiplied, hidden behind walls where shame echoes louder than their words. And this leads to one final piercing question. How can they escape the shadow of a funeral that plays on repeat, when every sunrise of your survival becomes another toll of their death knell? Chosen one, arise. What they called your end has become their own extinction. Their influence is buried. Their false power is buried. Their image is buried. Stand tall, for their mourning is the soundtrack of your resurrection, and their collapse is the stage for your eternal ascent. Number 4. Your name has become untouchable currency, a treasure sealed in heaven's vault, and they cannot spend it no matter how hard they try. For years, your enemies worked tirelessly to smear it with mud, convinced that mockery and doubt would strip it of value. They thought if they could convince enough voices to scoff, then your very identity would depreciate like counterfeit coins. But Proverbs 22:1 declares, a good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold. And is it not true now that the wealth of your name is priceless? While theirs has collapsed into bankruptcy, the irony burns them like fire, that while they shouted, slandered, and schemed, heaven was polishing your name like a hidden jewel. Every accusation they forged has now turned into a certificate of their own envy. While your name shines brighter as their shadows collapse, they believed a tarnished reputation would lock every door in your life. Yet doors opened wider. Why? Because a name forged in resilience becomes stronger than fire. Like tempered steel that only grows sharper under heat. Isaiah 62:2 proclaims, "You will be called by a new name that the mouth of the Lord will bestow." And isn't that what terrifies them most? That the very label they tried to destroy has now become your divine crown. Every time your name is spoken, it carries resonance like a struck bell in a cathedral, echoing with respect, curiosity, and wait. Doesn't it sting them to know that while they plotted your erasure, heaven was inscribing your identity in eternal ink? And isn't the heaviest truth that your silence was enough because God Himself spoke louder, branding your name with glory no human hand can erase? Opportunities are placed before you, not because someone co-signed your worth, but because your very survival turned your name into a key that no hand but yours can wield. Behind closed doors, they mourn silently because their names once shouted with arrogance now sound like rusted locks. Psalm 116 promises, "Surely the righteous will never be shaken. They will be remembered forever." What then does it mean for them? When the memory of their name fades like dust swept into the wind, their reputations crumble not from outside attacks, but from the weight of their own emptiness. Isn't it haunting for them that while your name opens heavenly gates, theirs closes earthly ones, and as they watch doors slam in their faces, they realize too late that every opportunity they stole was nothing more than sand slipping through their fingers? Artists have seen this truth long before us. Vincent van Gogh, mocked in his lifetime, once said that his name would mean something one day, despite rejection. Now his signature is priceless. Doesn't your story echo the same principle that a name despised by the envious may one day become the name carved in gold? And as Handel's Messiah swells with the chorus, "And he shall reign forever and ever," do you not hear the resonance that your name, tied to God's hand, carries the same authority that silences false voices forever? Their cries behind closed doors echo, not because your rise is strange, but because it is inevitable. They know deep down that what the world once mocked is now the very song the universe is forced to sing. Meanwhile, their names have become closed gates, bolted by mistrust. Ecclesiastes 7:1 declares, "A good name is better than fine perfume, and the day of death better than the day of birth." Their perfume has soured, their fragrance turned foul, while yours lingers like incense in the temple. Isn't it haunting to realize they cannot borrow your light, cannot counterfeit your victories, cannot force open the rooms that open for you alone? Every attempt to mimic your stride only exposes their hollow echo, and every false alliance they cling to collapses, because alliances built on envy are doomed from the beginning. Doesn't the silence of their halls prove that while they pretended to be kings, their crowns were nothing but dust? Philippians 2:9 resound. Therefore God exalted him to the highest place, and gave him the name that is above every name. Your enemies cry behind closed doors, because they know the truth value cannot be faked. Their imitations are cheap counterfeits. Their doors slam shut, while your name has become the master key. And here lies the ultimate question. If your name has become currency heaven backs, how can they ever compete with a value they never earned? Every tear they shed is interest charged on a debt they can never repay. And doesn't it cut them to realize that heaven's seal cannot be forged, only bestowed? Their mourning is endless because your rise is endless. And the contrast will follow them forever. Chosen one, rise. Your name is no longer a weapon in their hands. It is the anthem of your calling. Their tears are proof that no gate can deny you, no voice can silence you, and no counterfeit can match you. Stand tall, for your name has become eternal currency, and heaven has stamped it with glory. Their grief is the soundtrack of their downfall, but your song is the anthem of eternity. Number 5. They are now awakening to the most devastating revelation. You were the source of their power all along. That truth strikes them like thunder at midnight, a blow that no mask can soften. They mocked you, drained you, belittled you in public. But behind every insult was the unspoken confession that your light was their lamp and your strength was their crutch. John 1:5 declares, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." Isn't this why their world now feels suffocating? Because the very light they pretended to despise is gone. Without you, their shadows stretch endlessly, and they stumble in their own emptiness. Each day without your presence feels like another stone placed upon their chest, pressing them deeper into despair. For years they tapped into your kindness like parasites feeding on a tree's sap. They disguised their hunger with arrogance, but deep inside, they knew it was your resilience that kept their fragile structures standing. Psalm 36:9 reminds us, "For with you is the fountain of life. In your light we see light." Without that fountain, their world is arid, their hearts hollow, their plans collapsing into dust. Can you feel the irony? They once called you weak. Yet it was that weakness that held their empire of pretense together. And now, cut off from that flow, their lips are parched, their spirit groans, and every breath they take reminds them of the absence of what once sustained them. The same mouths that ridiculed you now crave the water they cannot drink. Nature itself testifies to their condition. The vampire bat survives only by draining blood from others, yet when cut off from its host, it starves quickly. The fig wasp can only complete its cycle through the fig tree. Separated, it perishes within days. Isn't that a perfect mirror of your enemy's creatures who thrived by draining you, now left trembling in spiritual withdrawal? And the more they scramble to find replacements, the more obvious the truth becomes. Nothing carries the essence you carried. Nothing sustains like the life you bore. Their secret tears are not signs of growth. They are the spasms of addiction. The silence in their rooms is filled with the echo of your absence, and that silence torments them louder than any storm. And history itself has shown this pattern through Scripture. King Saul, once clothed in power, found his spirit empty when David's anointing left his courts. 1 Samuel 16:14 records, "Now the Spirit of the Lord had departed from Saul, and an evil spirit tormented him." Does this not echo your enemies who mocked your presence, yet now cry in silence because your absence is their torment? They were addicted not to your body, not to your status, but to the unseen power of God flowing through you. Their palaces of arrogance now feel like prisons of regret, and every night they lie awake, haunted by the realization that the throne they thought was theirs only stood because you were near. Every attempt to replace you has failed. New faces lack the depth you carried. New distractions only echo emptiness. Jeremiah 2:13 confronts their reality. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and have dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. And is that not exactly why their tears now flood pillows? Because no counterfeit well can quench what your presence once supplied. Their hearts chase shadows, but shadows give no substance. Their hands grasp at mirages, but mirages offer no drink. They thought your silence would empower them, yet your silence became their famine. Their tears are not noble. They do not cry for you. They cry for access. They cry because they miss the quiet strength that once covered their weaknesses, the steady flow of power they mistook as their own. But here is their torment. Once a well is sealed, no force can demand its waters back. Just as Revelation 3:7 declares, what he opens no one can shut, and what he shuts no one can open. Their grief is the realization that your energy was never theirs to command, and without it, they stand naked in the ruin of their own illusions. Every day you rise, the chains around them tighten. Every victory you gain becomes another nail in the coffin of their pride, and still they weep, knowing no hand can ever restore the access they once abused. But tell me, how can they beg for water from a well they once poisoned with their own deceit? Chosen one, rise. You have proven that your so-called weakness was their life support, and now that cord is cut forever. Their collapse is evidence that your power was never theirs. It was a gift from God, flowing through you like a river of fire. Stand tall, for you are no longer their supply. You are the proof that divine energy cannot be drained. And isn't this the greatest testimony that what they tried to bury has become the source of your resurrection? The chains they forged now bind only themselves, while you ascend free. Number 6. The applause they stole was never theirs. It was only an echo borrowed from your light. And now that echo has died in the hollow chambers of their emptiness. That is the bitter truth, ringing like a cracked bell in their ears. For years they thrived off borrowed praise, building reputations on scaffolds that were never meant to hold them. They paraded your brilliance, your resilience, your victories as if they were their own crowns. Psalm 44, 8 declares, in God we make our boast all day long, and we will praise your name forever. Yet what happens when the praise was never meant for them? When the song of triumph was only lip-synced over someone else's melody? Their recognition was nothing more than stolen resonance bouncing from your frequency. They thought applause was a permanent currency. But applause without authenticity decays like sound waves fading into static. Isn't it striking that the same people who once cheered now fall silent? Sensing the hollowness, their performance was never music. It was mere noise. It's like a symphony missing its rhythm section, clashing instruments without harmony, claps without soul. Ecclesiastes 7:6 warns. Like the crackling of thorns under the pot, so is the laughter of fools. And now their joy is nothing but crackling sparks that die before warming anyone. You were the substance. Without you, their act collapses like an empty stage set. They cannot recreate the brilliance, because brilliance is not a costume you can wear. It is a fire that burns from within. Can you feel the weight of their humiliation, realizing that their so-called greatness was only a projection screen reflecting your light? Isn't it haunting that the audience now whispers, was it ever theirs, while their once loud applause echoes like an abandoned theater? Isaiah 42:8 says, I am the Lord, that is my name. I will not yield my glory to another or my praise to idols. The glory was never theirs to steal, and heaven itself has now reclaimed it. In the sciences, resonance tells the story. When two objects vibrate at the same frequency, energy transfers. But if the source is removed, the echo collapses into silence. Isn't that the perfect metaphor for your enemies resonating only when you stood nearby, but now exposed as lifeless when your frequency is absent? The architecture of their identity was hollow, like a facade without foundation. As 1 Corinthians 3:13 declares, their work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring it to light, and the light has come, exposing every false brick and borrowed beam. The shame cuts deeper because imitation eventually betrays itself. They tried to mimic your vision, your creativity, your strength. But imitation is like counterfeit currency. It may pass briefly, but eventually it collapses under scrutiny. Isn't it piercing to realize that their private tears are not just about losing attention, but about the exposure that their applause never deserved? Behind the curtain, their silence is deafening, because they know the spotlight no longer shines their way. Ordinary lives confirm this truth. Jacob, a janitor in a small city school, once said to his co-workers, "You can polish a trophy all you want, but if you don't earn it, it'll always feel heavy in your hands." His words echo prophetically now. The trophies your enemies held were borrowed, and now they tremble under the weight of what they never earned. Their claps now sound like empty halls, because you were the one who carried the performance with weight. Their names no longer draw trust. Their echoes no longer stir hearts. Proverbs 10:7 proclaims, "The name of the righteous is used in blessings, but the name of the wicked will rot." Without you, all they hold is rotting recognition, applause that crumbles like dry leaves underfoot. And the question that haunts them every night is this: how do you survive when the only spotlight you ever knew was stolen, and the true star has left the stage? Chosen one, rise. Their echo is gone, but your voice remains. Their theater is silent, but your stage grows brighter. The claps they stole have faded into dust, but the praise written in heaven for you will never end. Stand tall, for the applause of men fades, but the honor of God resounds forever. Number 7. Their so-called victory over you has aged like spoiled wine, souring with time until it poisons their very memory. At first, they drank it with arrogance, lifting the cup high as if they had conquered eternity. They laughed. They bragged. They whispered in the corners of shadows, boasting of your downfall as though it were a trophy. For a fleeting season, they believed they were untouchable, basking in a counterfeit glory. Yet Psalm 37, 35, 36 declares, "I have seen the wicked in great power, and spreading himself like a green bay tree. Yet he passed away, and lo, he was not." Doesn't this reveal why their triumph was always doomed? Because victories born from cruelty can never stand the test of time. Their taste of power was sweet for a moment, but now it burns like acid in their throats. Time has a way of stripping away illusions. What once felt like triumph has now curdled into shame they cannot wash away. Their boast, which once rang with confidence, now echoes as a confession of darkness. They thought they proved strength, but they only revealed how low they were willing to descend to see you stumble. Proverbs 24:17 warns, Do not gloat when your enemy falls, when they stumble. Do not let your heart rejoice. Yet they rejoiced, didn't they? And is that not the very reason their laughter torments them today? Because every cheer they once raised has become an indictment against their own hearts. Their false victory decays like an abandoned monument, crumbling under the weight of truth. Your suffering was never their triumph. It was their trap. Their celebration was not built on righteousness, but on cruelty. And cruelty always rots. Isn't it haunting that the memory they clung to as proof of superiority has become evidence of their corruption? Isaiah 5:20 says, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness." That woe has fallen on them now. The same moment they paraded as their highest peak has been revealed as their lowest valley. Every mention of your name, every display of your endurance, only twists the knife deeper, reminding them that what they cherished as victory was actually their undoing. The world of art and faith mirrors this reality. Dante, in his Divine Comedy, wrote of deceivers placed in rivers of filth, drowning forever in the stench of their own corruption. Doesn't that image paint your enemies perfectly, forced to live with the taste of their false triumph, unable to escape its stench? And the hymn Dies Irae, echoing through centuries, cries, "Day of wrath, day that will dissolve the world in ashes." Can you hear how that same wrath now shadows their conscience, dissolving the illusion of victory they once clung to? What once sounded like applause in their memory now rings as a funeral dirge, a judgment song they cannot silence. Their punishment is internal, deeper than any human judgment. Lamentations 3:64 declares, "You will repay them, Lord, according to the work of their hands." Isn't that repayment now visible in their tears, which sting not from sorrow for you, but from the gnawing realization of their own corruption? What they once held as a badge of greatness has become a scarlet letter burned into their conscience. Their private weeping is the bitter aftertaste of a banquet spoiled long ago. No crowd can drown it out. No mask can cover it. No new applause can erase the old poison. Psalm 23:5 promises, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows." And now that table is set, you rise in honor while they choke on the rot of their own pride. Chosen one, rise. Their laughter has died in shame. Their celebration has turned to ashes, and their cup of arrogance has soured beyond redemption. Stand tall, for what once mocked you now testifies for you. Their downfall is the proof of your ascension, and their bitterness is the sweetest confirmation that God's hand has lifted you higher than their cruelty ever could. Number 8. You became silent evidence they cannot erase, and that truth is the stone pressing against their chest, making every breath a torment. They built a false narrative with confidence, weaving lies with threads of arrogance, convincing crowds that your story was finished. They thought repetition would bury reality, that if they spoke long enough, others would believe their fabrications. Yet Isaiah 55:11 reminds us, "So is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it." Isn't this why their narrative is collapsing? Because no matter how many words they stack like bricks of deceit, your very existence is the wrecking ball that shatters them. They underestimated the power of survival. Every breath you take defies their claims. Every step forward exposes the cracks in their performance. And isn't it piercing to imagine how their silence now screams louder than their accusations? Psalm 118:17 declares, "I will not die but live, and will proclaim what the Lord has done." And isn't that exactly what your presence has become, an unspoken sermon they cannot silence? Your refusal to fold is your greatest argument. Your rise is the cross-examination they cannot escape. Their frustration bleeds in secret tears, because nothing is more permanent than a living contradiction to their lies. Nature testifies to this pattern. A shadow may stretch far at sunset, but once the sun rises higher, the shadow shrinks until it disappears. A river, though dammed, will eventually carve its own path and break through. Are these not mirrors of your enemy's plight? Their lies were shadows, their schemes were dams, but your rising light and unbroken flow made every obstruction collapse. And how bitter must it be for them now to witness that the very silence they dismissed has become the roar of undeniable proof. History in Scripture confirms the same fate. The Pharisees, determined to bury Jesus' truth, spread lies, staged accusations, and sought to erase his name. Yet Acts 5:39 records Gamaliel's warning, "If it is from God, you will not be able to stop these men. You will only find yourselves fighting against God." Doesn't that warning thunder now in the ears of your enemies, because your life, preserved by divine strength, has become evidence that their struggle was not against you alone, but against God Himself? Their tears are not just of regret, but of terror, because they realize their arms were too short to box with heaven. Their torment grows worse because the world is beginning to notice. Even those who once doubted you are forced to admit the contradiction. The lies they heard do not align with the life they now witness. John 8:32 declares, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." But here is the sting: the same truth setting you free is chaining them to exposure. Isn't it haunting to wonder how it feels for them to watch doors open for you while their credibility rots in silence? Every word they spoke now circles back to condemn them, because the crowd no longer trusts their voice. And what eats them most is permanence. They cannot erase you, cannot undo what has been proven, cannot bury the reality of who you are. Job 12:16 says, "To him belong strength and insight. Both deceived and deceiver are his." Their deception has boomeranged, binding them with chains forged from their own lies. No punishment you could hand out compares to this torment, knowing you walk as living, breathing evidence of their downfall. Their false victory has expired. Their story has collapsed. And their tears are the bitter ink of a narrative that cannot be rewritten. Chosen one, rise. You are no longer the victim of their script. You are the proof that exposes their false stage. Your silence is thunder. Your existence is testimony. And your survival is judgment. Stand tall, for you are the evidence they can never erase, the eternal witness that every scheme against you has failed. Number 9, they do not miss you. They miss the control. The leash they once fastened around your life like a chain of iron. That is the truth they will never confess in daylight, but it breaks them down in midnight silence. Their tears are not born of love, loyalty, or genuine regret. They flow from the bitter awareness that the strings they once pulled have snapped forever. Jeremiah 17:5 warns, "Cursed is the one who trusts in man, who draws strength from mere flesh, and whose heart turns away from the Lord." And isn't this the curse now choking them, because the power they thought was strength was nothing more than borrowed control. Their whispers of victory have become groans of loss. Their pride has collapsed under the weight of irrelevance. Their devastation was never about losing you as a soul created by God. It was about losing the ability to dictate your every decision, to twist your reflection in the eyes of others, to bend you until your identity was unrecognizable. Control was their intoxicant, their narcotic. Each explanation you gave fed their sense of mastery. Every defense you offered inflated their ego like a balloon straining to burst. But Galatians 5:1 declares, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm, then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." Isn't that why they suffocate now? Because your freedom has cut off their oxygen, and without it, their addiction has left them gasping in withdrawal. Their hunger was not for your heart, but for your submission. And now both are beyond their reach. Science echoes their downfall. In physics, any closed system without new energy inevitably moves toward entropy, chaos, disorder, collapse. Isn't that the perfect reflection of their current condition? When your energies stopped flowing their way, their fragile ecosystem began to unravel. The architecture of their identity was nothing but a facade built on false foundations. In structural engineering, without a keystone, the arch crumbles instantly. Your refusal to bow was that keystone. And once it was removed, their empire collapsed into rubble. Psalm 118:13 proclaims, "I was pushed back and about to fall, but the Lord helped me." You were upheld. While they fell into the pit of their own imbalance, their thirst for control has left them parched, and no fountain can refill what they drained from you. Ordinary lives whisper this truth. Daniel, a retired bus driver, once told his grandson, "If someone cries more over losing control of you than over losing your love, they never cared for you. They only cared for the throne they sat on." Isn't that statement piercing? Cutting through the fog of lies. For your enemies, love was never in the equation. It was power dressed as affection, manipulation disguised as connection. 1 John 4:18 tells us, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear," because fear has to do with punishment. Their control was rooted in fear, not love. And when fear lost its target, their kingdom of intimidation toppled into dust. Their hands, once trembling with arrogance, now tremble with loss. Their crown was built on sand, and the tide of your freedom washed it away. And what torments them most is irrelevance, the cruelest punishment of all. You move forward without their permission. You thrive without their validation. You breathe without their approval. Isn't it unbearable for them to watch you live freely when their voice no longer holds sway? Their tears are not noble, they are evidence of addiction. The shrieks of an empire cut off from its supply. Job 12:16 declares, "To him belong strength and insight. Both deceived and deceiver are his." And is it not the sharpest irony that the deceivers are now trapped in their own deception? Powerless, ordinary, and small, their tears flow not because they lost you, but because they lost the illusion that you were theirs to command. Chosen one, rise. Their leash has snapped. Their throne has shattered. Their empire of control has crumbled into ruin. You were never their possession. You are God's masterpiece. Free, radiant, and untouchable. Stand tall, for their irrelevance is eternal, and your liberation is the thunderous testimony that heaven's freedom cannot be chained. Number 10. Their comfort zone collapsed when you refused to break. And the sound of that collapse is still ringing like a funeral bell in their hearts. For years, your enemies thrived on the illusion that you would stay down. They wore your struggles as their crown, your silence as their authority, your pain as their script. Lamentations 3:34-36 cries, to crush underfoot all prisoners in the land, to deny people their rights before the Most High, to deprive them of justice. Would not the Lord see such things? Isn't that the very sight God revealed? As he overturned the stage they built on your suffering, their false elevation was never built on truth, it was built on your oppression. And now that oppression has ended, their throne has turned to dust. They are weeping not because you fell, but because you refused to. When you rose, the weight of prophecy came alive. The moment you stood against the storm meant to crush you. Every lie they spoke began unraveling, thread by thread. Isaiah 54:7 promises, no weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. Doesn't that promise now thunder in their ears? Your steady defiance is louder than their accusations, and your resilience has turned into their torment. They whisper in dark corners, trying to rewrite the story, but even their own voices betray them. Isn't it haunting to know that their security depended on your silence? And now your very breath is the rebuke that strips them bare. Their foundation cracked the moment you chose to endure without bowing. They had declared, see how weak, how incapable, how flawed they are. That lie gave them shelter, a cloak of superiority. But now, every day you walk in strength, that cloak disintegrates, leaving them naked in their exposure. Psalm 62:6 testifies, truly, he is my rock and my salvation, he is my fortress. I will not be shaken. And while you stand firm, their identity collapses in shame. Isn't it piercing to imagine how their confidence rots in their hands like spoiled bread? Because the strength they boasted was never theirs, it was always borrowed from your struggle. The great artists bore witness to such reversals. The Spanish painter Francisco Goya filled his canvases with warnings of what happens when cruelty masquerades as power. His words echo through brushstrokes. Fantasy abandoned by reason produces impossible monsters. Doesn't that capture the fate of your enemies, whose fantasy of your downfall has birthed the very monster that haunts them now? And in the world of sacred music, Mozart's Requiem mournfully sings, Confutatis maledictis, flammis acribus addictis, when the accursed are confounded and delivered to the bitter flames. Asterisk. Can't you almost hear how that chorus becomes their soundtrack? The hymn of a comfort zone burned to ashes by the fire of truth. Their victory song has turned into their dirge, and every note deepens their despair. Their tears now taste of exposure, and exposure is more devastating than any revenge you could deliver. John 8:44 unmasks them. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. Their language has betrayed them. Their narrative has expired. Their stage has vanished. They weep because the identity they paraded was always parasitic on your weakness. Isn't it striking that when you refused to remain broken, their story ended before their eyes? They never knew who they were, apart from your silence. And now the truth has revealed them to be ordinary, small, and powerless. 2 Corinthians 4:9 declares, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, built, not destroyed. Your resilience is the proof that their dominion has ended. Their comfort zone has collapsed beyond repair. Their false stage lies in ruins. Their throne is nothing but rubble, and now you stand, crowned not by their permission, but by heaven's decree. Chosen one, rise. Their mourning is endless, but your strength is eternal. Number 11. Every achievement of yours feels like a confession of their failure, a dagger twisting deeper each time your name is spoken with respect or your progress shines in the open. They tried to dismiss you, but every new level you reach turns into a courtroom where their failures are on trial. And how can they bear such a mirror when their eyes cannot close to it? Psalm 75:7 declares, "It is God who judges. He brings one down. He exalts another." Isn't that what they fear most? That your rise is not an accident, but a verdict from heaven itself, exposing their wasted years. What torments them even more is that they cannot appeal this verdict. There is no higher court than God's. Every time you stand taller, they feel the walls of their excuses shrink tighter. Each cheer you receive becomes the gavel striking against their self-deception. And they know deep inside that the evidence cannot be overturned. Your success is not just growth, it is revelation. Each milestone you achieve reflects back to them everything they could have built but never did. Isn't it tormenting to realize that your resilience reveals their complacency? Your discipline exposes their negligence, and your fire unmasks their apathy. James 2:17 thunders. Faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. Their inaction is now the corpse rotting in the shadow of your accomplishments. They can feign indifference, but inside they weep, because your growth preaches a sermon they cannot walk out on. Every new achievement of yours is like another chapter in a book they wish had never been written. And as much as they try to dismiss you, every door you open testifies against their closed ones. Doesn't it strike fear in them to know that your light has become the commentary on their darkness? Nature testifies to this law. The sunflower turns persistently toward the sun, rising tall and radiant, while the weed beside it wilts from lack of direction. The eagle climbs upon storm winds, while smaller birds scatter in fear. Aren't your enemies like those weeds and frightened birds, made bitter not by your light or strength, but by their own refusal to rise when they had the same sky above them? Isaiah 40:31 declares, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles." Your soaring is proof that their excuses are chains of their own making. And isn't it ironic that the same storms that gave you lift are the ones that sent them running? Every gust of wind that threatened to destroy you only pushed you higher. While they clung to the ground in fear, their bitterness now is not against you, but against the fact that the sky was available to them too, and they chose not to fly. History of Scripture bears another witness. Cain, burning with envy at Abel's offering, saw his brother's success as his own indictment. Genesis 4:6-7 records. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted?" Isn't that the same spirit haunting your enemies now, that your success is the proof of what they could have done if only they had chosen righteousness over bitterness? Their tears are confessions, not of sorrow for you, but of fury at themselves. And doesn't it sting that the story of Cain has echoed for millennia, yet they repeat it as though they have learned nothing? Just as Cain was marked by his envy, so too are your enemies marked by the evidence of their wasted choices. Every step you take forward rubs salt into that wound, proving that righteousness will always outlast bitterness. Your rise is salt in the wound of their wasted years. Eclesiastes 9:10 declares, "Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might." You did, and it shows they didn't, and that failure shines brighter with every step you climb. Isn't it crushing for them that others are now asking why you thrive while they remain stagnant? The public mirror magnifies their private torment, and their smiles in public cannot erase the tears they shed in secret. Every new level you ascend becomes another question mark hovering over their heads. What did you do with your time? And the truth burns them alive. They wasted it trying to bury someone who was destined to grow. Isn't that the cruelest punishment? That your life has become the proof of what they forfeited. Their silence cannot hide their shame because your consistency keeps ringing louder than their excuses. Chosen one, rise. Their envy is their confession. Their jealousy is their punishment. Their bitterness is their hell. Every step you take forward is another stone placed on the altar of your vindication. Stand tall. For your achievements are not just your victories, they are the everlasting witness that God lifts His own. And every breath you take is proof that heaven has the final word, not the lies of your enemies. Their torment is endless because your rise is endless. And that is why your survival has become their eternal defeat. Number 12. They realized they didn't just betray you. They betrayed destiny. And that revelation is the anchor dragging them into an ocean of grief. Betrayal of a person is cruel enough, but betrayal of destiny is rebellion against eternity itself. They treated you like a pawn, a disposable piece on their chessboard, never realizing the king's hand was directing your every move. They mocked your path as if it were fragile, but now they understand that to resist you was to resist the one who called you. Romans 8:31 declares, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" Isn't that why their tears sting so violently? Because they now realize they never fought you alone, but wrestled with heaven's decree itself. Their nights are restless because betrayal against destiny echoes louder than any accusation they ever spoke against you. They thought they were controlling your story, but in truth, they were colliding with a plan etched into the marrow of creation. Every attempt to silence you was interference with a script already signed in eternity's ink. Genesis 50:20 records Joseph's words, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done." Isn't that the twist cutting into their conscience, that their sabotage only became stepping stones for your ascent? Every stone they hurled at you has now become part of the staircase, elevating you higher. And doesn't it haunt them to realize they wasted years plotting against you, while heaven was converting their schemes into fuel for your rise? Their guilt is heavier than chains, because it is not just personal guilt. It is cosmic rebellion stamped across their own future. The language of science reveals their downfall. Resonance amplifies when frequencies align, and destiny hums with a frequency untouched by human hands. They tried to mute your sound, but instead your frequency only reverberated louder across time. Isn't it devastating for them that while they poured their energy into dampening you, your presence became a cathedral bell, ringing clear across every silence? Psalm 33:11 affirms, "But the plans of the Lord stand firm forever, the purposes of His heart through all generations." Their whispers are now static. Their noise is nothing but interference against God's great symphony. And doesn't that prove that what they called resistance was always just dissonant sounds that vanish when the true harmony takes the stage? Ordinary lives reveal this truth. Clara, a Kiet school janitor, once told her daughter, "If you fight the river, you only drown faster. but if you flow with it, you'll reach the sea. Her simple words pierce like prophecy now. Isn't that the perfect mirror of your enemy's despair, that in fighting against your river, they have been dragged under by currents stronger than their arrogance? Acts 5:39 declares, "If it is from God, you will not be able to stop these men. You will only find yourselves fighting against God." Their hearts beat with the dread of this reality. And how unbearable must it be to realize they weren't just fighting you, but damming a river they could never contain. Their mourning is sharp because it dawned on them too late. They fought a flow that never belonged to them. And in doing so, they drowned themselves. The evidence now stands undeniable. You are still here. You are still walking. You are still thriving. The doors they slammed have become gates of opportunity, and the people they turned against you are now drawn toward your light. Isaiah 14:27 cries, "For the Lord Almighty has purposed, and who can thwart him? His hand is stretched out, and who can turn it back?" Isn't that the question gnawing at their soul? How could they ever imagine they could undo what God himself had written? Every success of yours is a hammer pounding nails into the coffin of their schemes, and with every passing moment, the contrast grows sharper. Your resilience is eternal proof. Their opposition is eternal shame. Their grief runs deeper than regret. It is the recognition that destiny has always been undefeated. Eclesiastes 3:14 declares, "I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it, and nothing taken from it." Their betrayal not only scarred the past, it stained the future they hoped to control. Isn't it horrifying for them to grasp that they weren't simply your enemies, but enemies of what was holy, enemies of what was eternal? That is why no apology, no excuse, no tears can erase this verdict. They fought destiny, and destiny won. And that is the kind of loss that will echo in their bones until their final breath. Chosen one, rise. Their rebellion could not bury you. It only crowned you with proof of heaven's eternal hand. Their opposition was always futile, because your assignment was carved into eternity before you were born. Stand tall, for their defeat is permanent, but your calling is everlasting. Number 13, their secrets are now screaming louder than their lies. And those screams echo like thunder in chambers. They can no longer silence. For years, your enemies crafted an image built not on truth but on manipulation. They shaped lies with confidence, spreading tales that painted you as the problem while they played the part of the righteous. Yet Isaiah 29:15 warns, "Woe to those who go to great depths to hide their plans from the Lord, who do their work in darkness and think, 'Who sees us? Who will know?' Isn't that curse upon them now that the very shadows they trusted have betrayed them? They once thought noise would protect them, but now silence itself has turned into their accuser. And here lies the irony. The silence they once weaponized to cover their deceit has become the very silence that exposes them, louder than their words ever could. Their secrets are not whispering anymore, they are roaring, and no mask can muffle the sound. The curtain they built with false narratives has been ripped wide open, and their secrets now roar louder than the stories they once shouted. Their guilt trembles in their steps. Their shame leaks into their smiles. Their masks weigh heavier with every passing day. Psalm 44:21 declares, "Would not God have discovered it, since he knows the secrets of the heart?" Doesn't that truth stab at their conscience, reminding them that secrets are never truly buried? Your life, your growth, your resilience, your transformation has become living evidence that contradicts their accusations, and how terrifying must it be for them to realize that even without you speaking, truth speaks louder than every lie they ever rehearsed. Each day you rise higher. The lies they trusted sag lower, unable to bear the weight of reality. Even their allies begin to hear the cracks, asking questions they cannot answer. Isn't that why their nights are sleepless? Because truth does not need your voice. It carries its own. Time is the enemy of deception. Lies age like brittle paper, crumbling with the slightest pressure, while truth ages like unshakable stone, enduring and immovable. Proverbs 12:19 proclaims, "Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue lasts only a moment." Isn't that what haunts them each night, that every step you take in victory presses harder against their false story, while every stumble of theirs reveals the hypocrisy they can no longer disguise? Their secrets scratch like claws at the doors of their conscience, demanding to be heard, and no amount of denial can hold them back. Doesn't it make their hidden torment even sharper, knowing that the very silence they trusted is now filled with screams? The contrast grows unbearable. Your truth glows brighter as years pass, while their lies decay into dust. Time itself has taken your side. And isn't that the ultimate humiliation for them to realize eternity itself is your witness? Art has warned of this fate. William Blake, the English poet and painter, once wrote in The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, "Sooner murder an infant in its cradle than nurse unacted desires." Isn't that line a mirror to your enemies, who nursed hidden corruption until it grew into monsters that now devour them? And in sacred music, Handelsdettingen te Däum thunders, "The Lord is a man of war, the Lord is his name." Can you hear how that declaration drowns out their excuses, reminding them that every secret of theirs is already exposed before the throne of heaven? Their lives have become an opera of contradictions, where the chorus of lies has been silenced by the aria of truth. And doesn't art's testimony carry its own power, cutting through centuries to remind us that the human soul cannot escape exposure? Even their own minds now replay these truths like music on repeat, a score they cannot stop, no matter how hard they try. The most brutal reality is this: their lies were their only shield, and now that shield lies shattered on the ground. John 3:20 reveals, "Everyone who does evil hates the light, and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed." Isn't that the flame burning them alive, that the light of your endurance has revealed every crack in their disguise? Their secrets have become their worst betrayers, rising to expose what they tried hardest to conceal. And when secrets scream, masks always crack, shields always fail, and pretenders are always revealed. Their tears are not cleansing, they are corrosive, eating them from the inside out. Every excuse they once used to justify themselves is now fuel for their shame. Isn't it fitting that the very weapons they forged against you have become daggers turned inward, piercing their own souls? Chosen one, rise. Their lies are dust. Their secrets are daggers turning inward, and their false image is rubble. You stand unshaken, and your very existence is the light that scatters shadows. Stand tall, for truth has already won, and no amount of their weeping will ever rebuild the mask they lived behind. And isn't that the greatest vindication, that while their secrets scream in agony, your silence sings in victory? Number 14. They see now that your very existence is their unfinished lesson, and that lesson follows them like a ghost that refuses to leave the room. Every night, when the lights go out and silence presses in. Tears fall because they cannot escape the truth of what you have become. You are the unresolved chapter they cannot rewrite, the contradiction they cannot erase. Psalm 118, 22 declares, "The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." Isn't that exactly what tortures them, that the one they despised has become the foundation of undeniable victory? They invested everything into your destruction, yet you are still here, stronger than ever. And your presence is the wound they cannot stitch. And as time stretches forward, this wound only deepens, because every step you take forward presses harder against the scar of their failure. Their minds replay the same bitter memory. The more they tried to bury you, the taller you rose, becoming the monument they cannot topple. For them, this is not only unbearable, it is humiliating. It is not simply about you surviving, it is about them failing at the very thing they dedicated their lives to. They crafted elaborate schemes, spread venomous words, and poured their energy into erasing you. But you remain unbroken. A monument to resilience. Isaiah 54:17 proclaims, "No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you." Isn't that the scripture now written across their conscience like fire, reminding them that their strategies were always doomed? Every time they hear your name, every time they see your progress, it slices into their pride like a blade of light. Their hearts quake because every new triumph of yours is another nail in the coffin of their lies. And doesn't it sting them more than anything else to realize that in trying to destroy your story, they ended up writing the record of their own defeat? Nature itself speaks of their defeat. A storm may flatten grass, but oak trees rise again, rooted deeper than before. A vulture may circle, expecting decay, only to starve when life refuses to die. Isn't that their torment, that they expected you to crumble like fragile petals, yet you returned as a forest, unshaken, unburned? Job 14:9 testifies, "Yet at the scent of water it will bud and put forth shoots like a plant. You were watered by heaven, and their drought of cruelty could not kill you. Their tears are the sound of withered weeds, realizing they cannot outlast a tree planted by living waters. And the irony is piercing. Every attempt they made to strip you bare only strengthened your roots. You became more alive with each storm, while they withered in the very heat they tried to cast on you." Isn't it haunting for them to watch as nature itself testifies against their schemes? Scripture gives us a chilling reminder in Haman's story. He built gallows to hang Mordecai, convinced that his schemes would triumph. Yet Esther 7:10 records, "So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai." Isn't that the same pattern playing out with your enemies, that the plans they crafted for your ruin became the traps of their shame every time they see you walk with confidence? It reminds them of the gallows they built for you that now stand as monuments to their failure. Your survival has become their unfinished business, the test they can never pass. And isn't it poetic justice that the very tools of destruction they forged now stand as evidence against them? Their memories scream louder than their words, because deep inside they know the fate of Haman has always been the fate of all who touch God's chosen. Their private grief is the gallows tightening around their own pride. In the realm of human emotion, the punishment is relentless. They feel as though they are trapped in a classroom with no end, forced to retake the same exam of truth, and failing every time. Jeremiah 20:11 says, "But the Lord is with me like a mighty warrior, so my persecutors will stumble and not prevail." Isn't that what burns them, that no matter how many times they tried to write the script of your collapse, the author of eternity kept rewriting it with your triumph? Their tears are not cleansing, they are acidic drops of regret and shame, searing their conscience with reminders of a battle already lost. Every night is another exam they cannot pass, another question they cannot answer, another reminder that destiny is not on their side. Isn't that the sharpest torment, to be forever trapped in the cycle of failure, while the one they tried to erase continues to thrive? And here lies the sharpest truth. You are not just a chapter in their story. You are the book they cannot close. You are the mirror they cannot smash, the voice they cannot silence, the contradiction they cannot resolve. Revelation 3:8 declares, "See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut." Isn't that the nail in the coffin for their schemes, that every attempt to close your path only revealed doors heaven himself unlocked? Your existence is the loudest reminder that destiny won, and their cruelty failed. Their shame now is eternal, because your resilience is eternal. And doesn't it crush them to know that they will forever be forced to watch what they cannot undo? That is why they cry in secret, because they know their defeat is permanent. Chosen one, rise. Their secrets may gnaw, their regrets may burn, but none of it can silence the truth of who you are. You are the lesson carved into their history, the unerasable mark of victory. Stand tall, for their tears testify that you are untouchable, and heaven's decree is final. Theirs is an endless lament, but yours is an endless anthem. Something massive has shifted, and the ground beneath your enemies has cracked. It has left them weeping in silence, not because of love for you, but because of the illusions they built that have shattered into dust. Their tears are not noble, they are acidic drops of regret, dripping for the power they thought they possessed, but never truly owned. Every secret they buried is clawing its way out of the grave. Every lie they whispered is collapsing like a house of cards in the wind, and every attempt to erase your name has only etched it deeper into the fabric of destiny, making you shine brighter than ever before. You are no longer their target, you are their torment. You have become their unfinished lesson, their eternal contradiction, their living reminder that destiny cannot be defeated. Isaías 14:27 declares, "The Lord Almighty has proposed, and who can thwart him? His hand is stretched out, and who can turn it back?" Isn't that the dagger twisting in their conscience, that they were never truly in control of the story? And here's the beauty: you don't need to lift a finger. Your existence, your rise, your resilience preaches louder than any defense you could offer. Where they once laughed at your pain, they now choke on their own shame. Where they once declared the end of your story, they now see that survival has become your elevation, and it terrifies them. Because every victory you walk into is a mirror of their failure. Every breath you take in freedom reminds them of the chains they forged for themselves. Psalm 118:23 proclaims, "The Lord has done this, and it is marvelous in our eyes." Isn't that exactly why their tears flow hardest in the dark? Because they now realize the game was never theirs to control. You've won by standing. You've triumphed by enduring. And your survival has transformed into a throne of elevation. Their private cries are not whispers. They are the echoes of a system that failed, of a strategy that collapsed, of a story that was ripped from their hands and rewritten by heaven itself. Chosen one, you are walking evidence that God's plan is bigger than man's schemes. Your very life is the sermon they never wanted to hear, but cannot stop listening to. And that truth is the reason their eyes burn with endless tears. This is why you must stand firm. This is why you cannot retreat. Their grief is proof of your strength, and their regret is proof of your victory. Chosen ones. What we have uncovered today is not just about enemies weeping, it is about destiny standing. Their tears are not a sign of your weakness, but a public confession of your strength. They thought they could bury you, yet you became the seed that multiplied. They thought they could silence you, yet your very existence now roars louder than their lies. And the truth we carry is eternal. When God strikes, no hand can reverse it. And when he elevates his chosen, no scheme of man can pull them down. So, stand tall in this hour. Their cries are the sound of a broken system, but your voice is the sound of heaven's decree. You are proof that light cannot be hidden, that destiny cannot be destroyed, and that God's plan is unshakable. Let this message be your confirmation. You have already won, and their weeping is the evidence. Family, if this word has stirred your spirit, don't let it end here. Be part of this movement of revelation and victory. Hit that like button. Share this message so others can step into the same truth. Comment 777 to declare that you stand in alignment with heaven. And make sure to subscribe so you never miss another word meant to lift you higher. To each of you who has supported this channel, whether through super thanks or simply by showing up with your presence, your love, and your time, I want to say from the depth of my heart, thank you. You are the reason this message continues to spread like fire across the nations. And now, I speak blessing over your life. May your path be filled with light. May your enemies fall into their own snares. And may every tear you've cried be turned into rivers of joy. Stand firm, chosen one. You are unstoppable, and heaven is with you always.